You've been overlooked, labeled by where you came from, forgotten by those who once praised you, and misunderstood by those who never even tried to know your name. You've been carrying the weight of silence while watching others step into platforms you were promised. But I want to tell you something today with full authority and prophetic clarity. What God is about to do in your life will redefine you. It will be so divine, so strategic, so loud in its silence and deep in its impact that it will reintroduce you to a world that thought they knew you. They will look at you, and for a moment, they will blink, not in disbelief, but in awe. Because you won't just return, you'll emerge. God never forgets the quiet ones, the faithful ones, the ones who built in the dark while others danced in the spotlight. And when He moves, He doesn't need to explain Himself. He shifts seasons without asking for permission. That's what's about to happen to you. The very thing you thought disqualified you, the very place they laughed at, the very season they called your end, it's going to become the exact location of your unveiling. Because when God surprises, He doesn't upgrade your image, He restores your essence. He brings back what people buried, but He does it with resurrection power. You're not stepping into recognition, you're stepping into redefinition. This is not a comeback because you're not going back to anything. This is a divine introduction to a version of you that has been waiting in the chambers of heaven to be announced. You don't need to network your way there. You don't need to beg to be seen. When God wants to reveal a person, He will send winds, open doors, stir hearts, close mouths, and rearrange rooms to make space for your entrance. That's the level of favor you're about to walk into. And it's not just favor to be seen, it's favor to be established. People will try to make sense of it, try to connect the dots, but they won't be able to. Because what's coming isn't logical, it's supernatural. It's not based on resume, reputation, or relationship. It's birthed out of destiny. It's coming from a place that man cannot control, manipulate, or delay. And when God's hand is on it, it can't be duplicated. He is going to use your pain as a prophecy, your silence as preparation, your tears as the ink that writes the testimony. The story isn't over. It's being edited in heaven, and this next chapter will speak louder than every moment they misread you. You are about to walk into rooms you never campaigned for. You're about to wear favor that fits like a crown. You're about to be called by names you never gave yourself. Not because you sought validation, but because heaven has spoken. And when heaven speaks, the earth must respond. They will say, "Is that the same person? Is that the one we ignored, the one we overlooked?" Yes, but no. It's the same vessel, but with a new oil. The same life, but with a new glory. The same voice, but with a new sound. You are about to become unfamiliar to those who once knew you by your last failure, because this transformation won't be cosmetic, it will be kingdom born. And let me tell you, when God reintroduces you, it won't be for applause, it will be for assignment. You are not being raised to entertain, but to establish. You are not being promoted to impress, but to impact. This elevation is not for ego, but for evidence, to show the world what it looks like when someone waits on the Lord, trusts in silence, sows in tears, and remains faithful in the wilderness. You're not stepping out for attention. You're stepping into divine appointment. The stage God is building for you isn't made of lights. It's made of legacy. It's built on the foundation of obedience, humility, and purpose. And when you stand on it, it won't shake because it's not built by man. They won't just see you. They'll see the fingerprints of God all over your story. And even your enemies will have to admit, this wasn't talent, this was timing, this wasn't charm, this was calling, this wasn't luck, this was God. So don't shrink when the doors open. Don't apologize for the table God prepares. Don't explain the oil He pours. You've been refined in the fire, carved in the cave, whispered to in the wilderness. You didn't skip the process, you survived it. And now God is not just restoring you, He's releasing you into visibility with authority. There are moments in life when God doesn't simply lift you, He reintroduces you, not to the world, not to the crowd, not even to the people who once misjudged your silence, but to the real you that has been hidden behind years of delay, misunderstanding, and quiet preparation. This reintroduction is not about resurfacing with a better image. It's about emerging with your divine identity fully awakened. You are not being upgraded. You are being revealed. The version of you that's about to walk forward is not the one shaped by pressure, comparison, or struggle. It is the version formed by truth, refined by fire, and sealed with purpose. Many people have known you by your process. They've witnessed fragments of you. They saw the side affected by survival, not the side chosen by destiny. They saw you when you were building, but not yet finished. They heard your voice when you were still healing. They watched your efforts but couldn't discern your assignment, so they labeled you prematurely. They sized you based on temporary struggle, unaware of the eternal blueprint written over your life. But God, in His perfect wisdom, knows exactly when to uncover what He's been forming in secret. And when He does, the world doesn't just see you differently, it sees God through you. This kind of reintroduction isn't loud. It's not dramatic by human standards. It doesn't require a spotlight, a microphone, or a crowd to validate it. It carries its own presence. When you walk into rooms after divine transformation, you won't need to prove your growth. Your presence will announce it. You'll speak with a new weight. You'll carry an authority that doesn't come from titles or applause, but from having walked with God through silent seasons. And because you didn't skip the pain, the outcome will carry power. You were faithful in the shadows, and now God is positioning you in visibility, not for attention, but for assignment. You won't just walk back into familiar spaces, you'll redefine them. The people who once doubted you will be forced to ask, what happened to them? And the answer won't be found in natural explanations, because what God is doing in you can't be traced by timelines, degrees, or achievements. It will be evident that heaven intervened. It will be obvious that you were preserved, not paused. While others thought your story stalled, heaven was scripting your arrival. God was never behind schedule. He was building depth in you so that what's coming wouldn't break you, but bless you. You are not coming back with a version that needs validation. You're coming back with a version that carries vision, vision that was born in your weeping, vision that was sharpened in your isolation, vision that has nothing to do with impressing man and everything to do with fulfilling your kingdom calling. The reintroduction is necessary not because you need people to remember you, but because they need to witness what obedience looks like when God finishes writing the part they forgot you were living. You are not here to relive the past. You are here to walk in prophecy. The shift God is orchestrating will not just move you forward, it will move you into alignment. This is not about returning to old environments. It's about stepping into divine appointments prepared before you were even born. Every mislabel, every rejection, every moment you were misunderstood, all of it will be eclipsed by the unveiling of God's original design for you. You will no longer be known by what broke you, but by what built you. You will no longer be remembered for the battle, but for the blessing that followed. Because when God reintroduces you, He does not do so from the place of your pain. He does it from the seat of your purpose. And what's most powerful is that you won't need to explain yourself. You won't need to convince people that you're different now. They'll see it. They'll feel it. They'll know that the hand of God has touched you in ways that language can't even describe. There will be an undeniable shift in how people experience you. You will carry grace differently. You will speak with a renewed spirit. You will move in rooms not as someone seeking approval, but as someone carrying assignment. The reintroduction is heaven's way of restoring visibility to what once looked like defeat, but was, in fact, destiny being fulfilled. You are not who they thought you were, and you are not even who you once believed yourself to be, because what God is calling forth now is untouched by opinion and unshaken by delay. It is pure, it is holy, it is ready. You are not being recycled, you are being resurrected. This moment is not about repeating old patterns. It's about walking in the fullness of your calling, with nothing missing and nothing broken. The you that's rising now was always there, just waiting for the divine moment to step forward. This is not a step up, it's a divine release. And it's not to impress people, but to express purpose. God's surprise for your life will be so complete, so undeniable, that it will reintroduce not just who you are, but why you were born. There's something sacred about being hidden, not forgotten, not discarded, hidden. There is a divine mystery in the way God develops greatness far away from applause. When people don't see your work, your growth, or your faithfulness, it doesn't mean God has overlooked you. It means He's protecting something rare. Because the more valuable a thing is, the deeper it is buried before it's revealed. You were not neglected by heaven. You were reserved. Your silence was not a sign of insignificance. It was the sound of sacred preparation. God wasn't ignoring your prayers. He was answering them through process. And though it felt like obscurity, it was actually God's workshop, molding your identity in the dark, where distractions couldn't interfere and ego couldn't grow. You weren't hidden to be diminished. You were hidden to be defined, because when God prepares someone for something that cannot be shaken, He ensures the foundation is built in stillness. He does not rush His work. He allows storms to come, not to destroy you, but to carve out the kind of strength that cannot be imitated. You may have thought you were behind while others were running ahead, getting titles, gaining likes, building platforms. But what they were building in the open, you were developing in depth. And when your season arrives, what took others years to gather, you will carry in a moment, because your roots were deep, even when your branches weren't visible. This is the paradox of divine development. God often anoints you in private before He ever announces you in public. He teaches you how to carry weight while no one is watching. He gives you oil in secret so that when the light finally shines, you don't break under it. Others may have bypassed the process. They may have used shortcuts, connections, and performance to gain attention. But God never intended for your name to rise through manipulation. He intended for your character to carry the promise. You didn't skip the fire. You endured it. And because of that, what's coming will not just be massive, it will be unshakable. There's a certain strength that only develops when applause is absent. There's a level of clarity that only arrives when voices are quiet. And there's a level of obedience that only matures when you have nothing but God's word and your own faith to hold on to. That's where you've been. You've been walking through seasons where you had to trust the invisible, where you planted seeds that no one ever saw, where you labored in silence with no recognition, no confirmation, and no audience. But heaven was watching. God took note of every sacrifice, every tear, every time you showed up when you felt forgotten. And now He is preparing to lift the curtain. The people who once ignored your presence will soon witness your purpose. But the change didn't start when the door opened. It started back when you were faithful with nothing. When you chose discipline over distraction. When you chose to stay quiet rather than defend yourself. When you chose to keep building what no one clapped for. That's where real strength was forged. And it's why your arrival won't be shallow or fleeting. It's why what you carry will outlast trends. Because your value wasn't shaped in a rush. It was formed in reverence. What's beautiful about God is that He doesn't measure greatness by visibility. He measures it by vessel capacity. He fills only what is ready to carry. And you were being shaped, even in the shadows, to carry something greater than popularity. You were being made ready for legacy, for influence that doesn't just echo, but transforms. And now you will not rise like one trying to be seen. You will rise like one who has been sent. You won't carry desperation. You'll carry direction. Because this season isn't the result of a lucky break. It's the result of God's intentional formation in the depths where only His voice could reach you. They didn't see what you survived. They didn't feel the weight you carried in prayer. They didn't watch you rise again after private failures, heartbreaks, or disappointments. But God did. And when He chooses to elevate, He doesn't consult the opinions of the people who once dismissed you. He lifts based on what He knows was done in the secret place, the quiet nights, the weeping worship, the surrendered heart. That's what built you. That's what qualified you. And that's why no man can disqualify what's about to be revealed. Your obscurity was your oil. Your hidden season was your holy ground. And now when God brings you forward, it won't just be your name that shines. It will be His nature in you. The fire refined your vision. The silence purified your motives. The delays deepened your faith. You are no longer who you were. And because you didn't rush the process, the promise will meet you with power. Not just any power, but divine, undeniable, irreversible evidence that God was with you the whole time. You weren't overlooked, you were overprepared, and now what once looked like delay will be revealed as design. When God moves in your life, it's never small, never shallow, and never by accident. His movements carry weight, purpose, and eternal intention. He doesn't just elevate to impress, He establishes to fulfill destiny. There's a vast difference between being lifted by man and being established by God. Man can open doors, but only God can build foundations that weather every storm. What He's preparing to do in you isn't just a temporary promotion, it's a permanent positioning. You're not being pushed forward to be seen. You're being planted in a place where your roots will go deep, where your identity will be anchored, and where your influence will be backed by heaven. There is a kind of movement that only God can initiate. And when He does, no hand can stop it. No voice can block it, and no system can delay it. That's the kind of movement coming toward you. One that's not dependent on connections, endorsements, or surface-level support. It's not the kind of favor that fades after applause. It's the kind of favor that is sustained by covenant, not by circumstance. When God establishes a person, He doesn't just position them, He surrounds them with the infrastructure needed to carry the weight of their calling. He doesn't give spotlight without substance. He doesn't give visibility without virtue. Before He raises you publicly, He fortifies you privately. What God is building through you is not for a season, it's for significance. You've seen people rise quickly, shine brightly, and fall quietly because they were elevated without being established. They chased attention without building depth. But that's not your portion. Your foundation has been tested in silence. Your roots have grown in soil no one else saw. You didn't arrive through shortcuts or manipulation. You grew through obedience, trust, and sacrifice. That's why your time is not just coming, it's being sealed. God is not just opening a door, He's securing a future. He's creating space that belongs to you, not based on popularity, but on purpose. Establishment from God is not fragile. It doesn't need constant validation. It doesn't tremble when critics speak or crumble when others are preferred. It stands firm because it's not built on man's approval. It's built on divine intention. What's coming into your life won't be something you have to fight to keep. It won't require you to perform, pretend, or shrink. You will not have to compete because what's yours is yours by heaven's decree. When God establishes you, He also sustains you. He surrounds you with what you need: wisdom, strength, clarity, discernment. You won't be overwhelmed because you were prepared for this. There is something deeply reassuring about the way God works. He doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He takes His time because He's not just interested in moments, He's building movements. Your life is about to reflect the kind of shift that silences every doubt you ever had. Not because you'll be in a bigger room, but because you'll belong there. There will be no question about why you're there, no confusion about your presence. It won't be a lucky break. It will be the manifestation of the very thing you were born for. And the peace that comes with that is far greater than any applause. You'll walk in not as a guest, but as a rightful vessel, carrying God's intent. When God establishes a person, He also shuts doors that would distract them. He protects their mind, fortifies their spirit, and aligns their environment. You'll begin to notice how certain voices fade away, how certain invitations lose their appeal, how some spaces no longer carry the weight they used to. That's not loss, that's divine realignment, because establishment requires separation. God is not interested in blending you into the crowd. He's setting you apart so your life can bear fruit that's lasting, not seasonal. You are being marked not just for breakthrough, but for impact that reaches generations. There are places you were never meant to be sustained by. There are platforms you were never meant to depend on. And there are people whose absence is necessary for your clarity. That's why some doors closed when you thought they would open. That's why some connections disappeared when you thought they would last. It was all part of the establishment. God didn't want anything temporary to be mistaken as your source. So he's making it clear now, he alone is the one who positions and preserves you. What you carry is too important to be held up by shallow hands. What you've survived is too deep to be limited by surface stages. God saw your quiet tears, your hidden labor, your silent endurance, and now he's building something with your name on it. Something immovable, something unstoppable. When he establishes you, he puts you where your gift won't be wasted, your voice won't be silenced, and your future won't be compromised. You're not entering for attention, you're arriving for assignment. This is the moment where the process reveals its purpose, where the delay gives way to divine placement, where everything you thought was working against you is suddenly seen as the very thing that qualified you. God is not just bringing you into a new chapter. He's writing your name into his eternal design. This isn't just promotion. This is divine establishment. And nothing can uproot what he plants with intention. There are chapters of your life that seemed unfair, moments that broke your heart, and seasons that felt like silence from heaven. You endured trials that made no sense, pain that found no explanation, and delays that looked like denial. But in the eyes of God, none of it was wasted. Every tear you cried, every night you felt forgotten, every door that slammed shut in your face, all of it was recorded. All of it was sacred. What looked like suffering was actually the soil. What felt like loss was the planting ground for something supernatural. God was not punishing you. He was preparing a stage where his glory would emerge from the very places you thought had destroyed you. There is a beauty in how God uses brokenness. He doesn't discard the pieces. He collects them, reshapes them, and builds something stronger than what existed before. You weren't being ignored when things fell apart. You were being planted. Your pain didn't signal the end. It signaled the beginning of an internal transformation, a deep awakening, a spiritual strengthening that could only be developed in seasons of isolation. When people walked away and answers didn't come, God remained. And what he was doing in those quiet moments is far more powerful than anything you could have built for yourself in the spotlight. Pain has a strange way of introducing you to purpose. It digs into you, rearranges your inner world, and strips away everything false until only truth remains. And in that raw truth, in that sacred, vulnerable place, God whispers destiny. You start to realize that what was pressing you down was actually positioning you. What broke you open was also breaking the limitations off of you. You thought it was falling apart, but God was allowing it to fall into place, because what he's about to do through you couldn't come through comfort. It had to come through crushing, and that crushing was not the end of your story. It was the anointing of a new beginning. There were nights you prayed with trembling hands, days when you showed up even though you felt invisible, moments when your voice cracked from holding back the weight of your emotions, but you kept going, you kept believing, you kept planting seeds, even when it looked like nothing would grow. And now, in the divine timing of God, those hidden seeds, watered by your tears, nurtured by your faith, and protected by your endurance, are about to bloom into a harvest that silences every lie spoken against you. What once looked like a grave will soon be recognized as a garden. You may have felt small, but you were never insignificant. You may have felt overlooked, but you were always observed by the one who sees in secret. God was watching every act of obedience, every time you said yes to him, even when it cost you comfort. And now he's turning your pain into prophetic proof. Proof that he never abandoned you. Proof that the process wasn't for nothing. Proof that even in silence, he was working. You didn't just survive, you were being sculpted. And now the world is about to witness what it looks like when someone rises out of the fire carrying glory instead of ashes. The soil of suffering is where God plants his most powerful stories. He doesn't just bless your victories, he blesses your valleys, because it was in the valley that you learned how to walk without fear. It was in the shadows that you learned how to hear his voice more clearly. It was in the dark that you discovered the light wasn't around you, it was in you. And when the world sees you now, they won't just see someone who made it through, they'll see someone who carries evidence of divine preservation, evidence of internal transformation, evidence that God still raises those who trust him even when nothing makes sense. This is why your story is shifting. Not because you pushed for it, but because you trusted for it. Not because you demanded it, but because you endured for it. You didn't run ahead. You stayed. You surrendered. You wrestled with doubt and still chose to believe. And that kind of faith never goes unnoticed. That kind of faith pulls something from heaven that explanations can't describe. That kind of faith attracts restoration that no one can reverse. Now the very places you were wounded will become platforms of wisdom. The very tears you hid will become testimonies of triumph. The very prayers you whispered will become the echoes of miracles. You are walking into a moment where your pain will speak, but not of defeat. It will speak of purpose. You will see how everything connected. You will understand why it had to happen the way it did. Not to destroy you, but to develop you. Not to break you, but to build you. And when you stand in the fulfillment of that promise, you won't have to prove anything. Your presence will speak. Your fruit will speak. Your endurance will speak. God is about to turn your pain into the kind of platform that carries weight, influence, and redemption. What the enemy tried to use to bury you, God is using to reveal you. And what once made you question everything will become the very thing that confirms your calling. You were planted in pain, but you will rise in power. And that rising is not for show, it's for impact. It's not just for your benefit, it's for everyone connected to your journey. You are the living evidence that God turns mourning into dancing, pressure into purpose, and tears into testimonies. And now, every painful seed is about to produce something greater than you imagined, a harvest that will speak of his faithfulness forever. There are certain moments in life when God moves in such a profound and unexpected way that it silences everything. The doubts, the critics, the lies, and even your own past fears. When God decides to surprise you, he does not whisper, he reveals. And when he reveals, it's not just for you to smile quietly. It's so undeniable that even those who once doubted your existence are forced to admit something divine has happened. This kind of move from God is not gentle, it's transformational. It doesn't just upgrade your life, it confronts every false narrative ever written about you. The surprise he is about to unveil won't merely shift circumstances, it will reverse conclusions. There are people who spoke too soon. There are judgments that were made based on your quiet seasons, assumptions drawn from your absence, gossip stirred by your delay. You've been misunderstood, mislabeled, misread, and for a time you were silent under the weight of it all. But God was not silent. He heard every word spoken behind closed doors. He saw every time your name was reduced to a joke, every moment your loyalty was repaid with betrayal, every season where your value was hidden behind closed hearts. And while it looked like he was doing nothing, he was preparing a response, not in words, but in power. When God surprises you, it is never small. It doesn't come dressed in human logic. It comes wrapped in wonder. It's the kind of shift that causes people to stop and stare, not because you demanded attention, but because God's glory demands recognition. The same mouths that said you'd never make it will be the same mouths that say, only God could have done that. The very people who watched you struggle in silence will witness you walk in a favor that they cannot explain. Because God doesn't just vindicate with subtle signs, he vindicates with undeniable results. Results that challenge the limits others tried to place on you. This is the kind of season where your testimony will be too loud to ignore. You won't have to prove a point. You won't need to explain what you've been through. The fruit of your endurance will speak. The blessing will walk into the room before you even open your mouth. It will be visible, evident, tangible. The oil that came from your crushing will shine, and no one will be able to deny that it came from somewhere sacred. You won't glow because of popularity. You'll radiate because of the presence that now rests upon your life. God's surprise is never random, it's precise. It arrives at the moment when people have settled into their assumptions about you, when they've written you off, moved on, and labeled your life as a closed case. And that's when God steps in, not to entertain, but to educate. He reveals what happens when someone trusts him in obscurity. He teaches that purpose can never be silenced. He reminds the world that divine timing will always outrun human judgment. And he does it in such a way that there's no one left to credit but him. You are not rising to clap back. You are rising as living evidence. Your life will become a divine contradiction to everything they thought they knew. And the beauty of it is that you won't carry bitterness. You'll carry blessing, because God doesn't elevate with vengeance. He elevates with vision. He doesn't repay evil with noise. He restores with glory. And when that glory touches your life, your story becomes an unfolding revelation, not of your strength, but of God's unwavering faithfulness. There will be no need to fight for recognition. The same people who walk past you without noticing will be the same ones asking how it happened. And you won't need to say much. You'll simply point upward, because this surprise won't just impress the watchers. It will humble them. It will show them that while man was judging your steps, God was writing your legacy. That while they focused on your silence, God was preparing your stage. That while they mocked your delay, God was saving his best for his appointed time. You never needed to beg to be seen. You never needed to campaign to be chosen. What God is about to do in your life will cancel every lie without you saying a word. It will dismantle every assumption with the weight of truth. It will shift every narrative with the force of favor. And it will do it so suddenly, so powerfully, that even your enemies will be left in stillness. They won't just watch you rise. They'll witness the hand of God carry you to a place you never imagined, a place that can't be earned, only graced. This is not about making others feel small. It's about showing how big God really is. It's about revealing that his timing is perfect, his strategy flawless, and his justice unstoppable. You were never forgotten. You were hidden for such a time as this. And now God is about to lift the curtain, not just for a moment, but for a movement. You are not coming forward with noise. You are stepping forward with evidence. Evidence that God exalts the faithful. Evidence that silence doesn't mean absence. Evidence that the ones who endure in secret will shine in God's appointed surprise. And the sound of that surprise will echo louder than any lie ever spoken. What God is about to do in your life is not shallow. It's not surface level, cosmetic, or crafted for temporary admiration. It won't just make you look different. It will make you new. This next move from heaven will not be about appearances. It will be about essence. The transformation won't be something you wear. It will be something you carry. It won't just be a change of pace or a new position. It will be a complete renovation of the inner person. You're not about to be adjusted. You're about to be redefined. The world may think they know you based on who you've been, but they are about to be introduced to a version of you that has never been seen before. Because when God steps in, he doesn't decorate the outside, he rebuilds the inside. There is a type of shift that makes people stare in confusion, not because you're louder, richer, or more visible, but because the light within you has shifted. Your presence will feel different. Your energy will carry something that cannot be explained by effort or environment. That's because God doesn't transform your life for people to applaud. He does it so they can witness his power. The transformation he's orchestrating won't fade when the spotlight dims. It will not vanish when people stop clapping. It will remain because it's not tied to attention. It's anchored in identity. This is not a makeover. This is a spiritual construction site. God has been tearing down what was built in fear, insecurity, people-pleasing, and pain. And in its place, he's been establishing boldness, clarity, humility, and conviction. You may not even realize how much you've changed because the process happened so quietly, so deeply. While others were building platforms, you were letting God build your character. While others were chasing titles, you were learning the sound of God's voice. And now, without you even knowing it, something in you has shifted. You've been reshaped in silence, but soon you'll be recognized in purpose. You don't look the same, not because your clothes are new, but because your countenance carries the presence of the one who walked with you through fire and never let go. The glow people will see on you isn't fashion, it's favor. The calm they'll sense in your voice isn't confidence, it's peace. The strength they'll feel when you speak won't come from titles or training. It will come from truth, carved in the dark and lit by surrender. God didn't just prepare a season for you. He prepared you for the season. And the version of you that's emerging isn't modified. It's born of the Spirit. The most powerful part about this transformation is that it doesn't beg for attention. It commands respect without even trying. It speaks without shouting. It influences without forcing. Because true transformation doesn't chase stages. It walks in assignment. It doesn't seek to be known. It lives to make Him known. What God has done in you is so pure, so intentional, that you won't need to defend it. You'll simply walk into rooms and the atmosphere will shift. You'll open your mouth and wisdom will flow. You'll touch situations and breakthrough will begin. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've finally become who you were always meant to be. This isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about living in alignment with everything that's right, with who God called you to be before life tried to dim your light. You were not born to stay in fragments. You were born to function in fullness. And now God is gathering the pieces, the brokenness, the silence, the long nights, the surrendered dreams. He's piecing it all together and breathing life into what was buried, not for your ego, not for your image, but so that your very existence can testify of His power. When God transforms, He doesn't just upgrade, He overwrites. He rewrites the way you see yourself, the way you carry yourself, the way you make decisions, the way you respond to both praise and pressure. You'll no longer move out of survival. You'll move out of revelation. You'll no longer serve out of striving. You'll serve from a place of divine assurance. The noise around you will lessen, not because it disappeared, but because the clarity inside you became louder. That's what transformation does. It settles you, it secures you, it simplifies you until all that remains is God's truth and your trust. People won't recognize you. That's not something to fear, it's something to embrace. Because God is not restoring you to your old self. He's releasing you as someone new. He's pulling you out of who you had to be to survive and reintroducing you to who you were created to be to thrive. And when that version steps forward, nothing will be the same. Relationships will shift. Environments will change. Assignments will unfold because the transformation wasn't temporary. It was permanent. You were never meant to look like what you've been through. You were meant to look like the glory you carry. You were meant to shine in a way that makes people wonder how. And when they ask, you won't give them a formula. You'll point to God, because only He could take pain and produce purpose. Only He could take ashes and produce anointing. Only He could take the version of you buried under rejection, shame, fear, and delay, and resurrect you in power, identity, and grace. This transformation is irreversible. This is the real you, and this is God's doing. There is a kind of elevation coming to your life that you will not have to chase. You won't need to manipulate rooms or strive to be noticed. You won't have to compromise your values, shrink your identity, or compete with others just to be seen. What's coming isn't something you'll need to force. It's something heaven has already finished. You are about to walk into places you didn't lobby for, be called into spaces you didn't audition for, and be seated at tables you didn't even know were being prepared for you. Not because you worked harder than everyone else, but because God's hand has written your name into the atmosphere of favor. This kind of access cannot be explained by credentials nor measured by popularity. It won't be the result of applause or people finally liking you. It will be divine placement, the kind of positioning that can only happen when God opens a door that no man can shut. It will be so effortless and so precise that even you will pause and ask, how did I end up here? And in that moment, you'll know it wasn't because you pushed, it was because you were positioned. God doesn't need you to knock down doors when He's already assigned angels to swing them open. What He's bringing into your life is not the result of hustle. It's the manifestation of heaven's orchestration. This new season isn't about chasing stages. It's about carrying substance. You're not being placed for popularity. You're being planted for purpose. And when purpose is what carries you, you don't have to beg to be included. You don't have to plead for validation. You simply show up full of truth, full of presence, full of what the moment requires, and the room adjusts. You're not entering these environments because of what people think about you. You're entering because of what God has invested in you. And that investment is now demanding visibility. There are places where your name has been spoken and you haven't even stepped foot in the room yet. God has been preparing hearts to receive you. He's been softening atmospheres, unlocking doors, and clearing pathways, all in silence. You may have felt forgotten, but in reality, you were being spoken of in heaven's language. The silence wasn't a delay, it was a strategy. God was preparing the right moment, the right context, and the right people, because what's coming is too precise to be rushed. And when it happens, it will be so clear that it had nothing to do with human endorsement and everything to do with divine timing. When you walk into these rooms, there will be no arrogance, no desperation, and no need to prove yourself. You won't come with a resume in hand, you'll come with evidence. Evidence of what God did in your private seasons. Evidence of your perseverance when no one was clapping. Evidence of your character when no one was watching. And that quiet strength will speak louder than any introduction ever could. People won't just hear your voice. They'll feel your weight, not a weight of pressure, but a weight of purpose, not a weight of performance, but a weight of presence. This isn't about rising for attention. It's about rising with assignment. There's a mission on your life that cannot be silenced, and God is now unveiling it without permission from anyone who tried to hold you back. You're not entering these places to impress. You're entering to impact, and your impact will not come from volume. It will come from vision, vision that was sharpened in the dark, vision that was tested by fire, vision that now walks with confidence because it knows who sent it. Every time you felt overlooked was actually a moment of divine shielding. God was keeping you from rooms that would have celebrated your talent but suffocated your calling. He was protecting the oil on your life from being contaminated by premature exposure. He was letting others go ahead so He could refine you in peace. You didn't miss your moment and you outlasted the noise. And now, as the dust settles, your voice will rise, steady, clear, and undeniable. When you walk in this time, it won't feel like arrival. It will feel like alignment, like finally stepping into a space that matches what's been growing in you all along. The room won't validate you. You'll validate the room. Your presence will carry solutions. Your words will release direction. Your insight will shift the atmosphere, not because you rehearsed a perfect speech, but because you carry something that wasn't bought or borrowed. It was birthed. There will be no need to announce yourself. The grace on your life will do the speaking. It will draw the right ears, unlock the right hearts, and dismantle the wrong motives. You won't need to convince anyone. God will make sure that who needs to see you will see you, and those who can't honor you will no longer have access to your anointing. This is the era of intentional access, not public display, but prophetic assignment. You will walk through doors not because of what you've done, but because of who you've become. Your footsteps are now being ordered by heaven's agenda. You will enter places you didn't expect with a peace that passes all understanding, and it will become undeniable, not just to you, but to everyone watching, that your life is not the result of opportunity, it is the result of obedience. You were faithful with little, and now the much is finding you, not because you forced your way forward, but because you stood still long enough for God to move you in His timing. And when He moves you, no force can reverse it. You are not coming back into this world for claps, for likes, or for the shallow satisfaction of attention. This next return of yours, this rising, this re-emergence, it has nothing to do with being seen and everything to do with being sent. You're not rising as a performer. You're rising as a vessel. You're not returning for approval. You're returning for assignment. You've been through too much, survived too deeply, healed too honestly to walk back into the world with anything less than holy purpose pulsing in your veins. This isn't about showing the world who you are. This is about showing the world what God is doing through you now. Something has shifted in your spirit. Something in you no longer responds to noise. You're not chasing exposure anymore. You're chasing eternal impact. There's a mission written on your soul that won't let you waste your breath on proving yourself. You're not here to prove. You're here to pour. You're not rising with revenge in your heart. You're rising with revelation in your spirit. The fire you've walked through wasn't just to burn off the unnecessary. It was to awaken the necessary. What remained after the fire is what's now being released with power. God has refined you not for entertainment, but for influence. Not the kind of influence that trends, but the kind that transforms. You are walking into a moment where your presence will shake atmospheres. Not because you're louder than others, but because you carry something heavier, something heaven approved. There is a weight to your words now, a depth to your silence, a purpose behind your presence. And that kind of presence isn't made, it's forged. You didn't find this in comfort, you found it in consecration. This is why it took time, because what God has placed in you couldn't be rushed. He didn't want your name to get ahead of your character. He didn't want your visibility to outpace your inner maturity. So He placed you in a season of divine construction, stripping you of distractions, cutting away ego, molding you in places where no one clapped, just so that when you return, you'll know who sent you and why you were sent. You'll no longer walk into places to be validated. You'll walk in to bring value. You'll no longer bend to fit into systems. You'll stand to shift them. You are not called to blend in with the noise. You are called to be a breaker of patterns, a breaker of cycles, a voice in the wilderness calling people back to truth, to clarity, to vision. You will not be received by everyone, and that's okay. Because your assignment isn't for everyone. It's for those whose hearts have been assigned to your voice. There are people whose next chapter is waiting on your obedience. There are lives on the other side of your yes. That's why the battle was so intense. That's why the warfare wasn't just around your situation. It was around your assignment. You are not just stepping back into places you left. You are stepping in with authority. A quiet authority, the kind that doesn't announce itself but shifts atmospheres. You'll walk into familiar rooms and carry unfamiliar weight. You'll speak in familiar places with unfamiliar power. That's because you're not returning as the version of you they remember. You're returning as the version God has refined in fire and clothed in oil. The process was long, but it was worth it, because now every step you take is not random, it's righteous. There's something different about those who rise with assignment. They don't chase platforms, but platforms find them. They don't seek to be heard, but when they speak, the room grows still. They don't need spotlights because they carry their own light. You are that kind of person now. You are the evidence that what was formed in the dark has more power than anything manufactured in the light. You are proof that God still sends people, not just famous people, not just powerful people, but faithful people. People who are obedient in silence, consistent without applause, and pure even when tested. You're not coming back to make noise. You're coming back to release clarity, to break confusion with truth, to interrupt despair with hope. You're not here for status. You're here for service. And the difference will be felt in the way you move, in the way you speak, in the way you love people others overlook. You've been prepared to carry something others can't explain. And that's exactly how God will get the glory. What you carry now doesn't beg to be accepted. It commands alignment, not by force, but by presence. People will sense that something in you has been marked, not by man's approval, but by God's assignment. You've been sent, and the atmosphere around you will know it before you even open your mouth. The shift in your life is not a return to old habits. It's a release into new territory. You are no longer trying to fit into what you outgrew. You're now ready to build what never existed. This is your sending season. You're not walking in with answers. You're walking in with assignment. You're not returning to be seen. You're returning to serve. And because you've said yes in the shadows, God is now breathing on your yes in public. Not for your ego, not for fame, but for impact that echoes through generations. There is a moment in every divine journey when the person you used to be no longer fits into the places you're called to go. The voice you once had becomes too small for the message you now carry. The identity shaped by survival, silence, and misunderstanding begins to shed, because the weight of God's plan requires the fullness of who you were always meant to be. This is that moment. You are not stepping into your old life with a better attitude. You are stepping into a new assignment with a new identity. You've outgrown what once defined you, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aware now, aware of your calling, aware of your capacity, and aware of the God who never gave up on you when everything else did. What's coming next will not be a return to what was. It will be a full introduction to what is. This is not a sequel. This is a rebirth. You're not revisiting the past. You're revealing the present version of you that's been quietly formed in hidden spaces. There were seasons when you were quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because the voice you had no longer matched the vision inside you. God wasn't silencing you. He was maturing your sound. He was growing your roots before He allowed your fruit to show. You are no longer a reflection of the room that doubted you. You are now the revelation that came from being doubted and surviving it. You no longer walk with the posture of someone needing to be chosen. You walk with the weight of someone who knows they were already called. And with that calling comes a new expression, not just in what you do, but in who you are becoming. The world cannot reintroduce you because the world didn't form you. It's God who is unfolding this next version of you, a version they never saw coming because it was shaped in a place they never had access to. You are not who they thought you were. You are not who they left behind. You are not the version that bent under pressure, nor the one who needed constant permission to be seen. You are the version that stood in silence and still chose purpose. The version that was forgotten but stayed faithful. The version that cried but kept building. You are walking into this next space not with permission, but with power. And that power does not scream. It simply is. It doesn't boast. It moves with quiet strength because it knows it carries something sacred. This reintroduction will not need an announcement. The evidence will speak for itself. You won't have to explain where you've been or convince anyone that you've changed. Your actions, your posture, your peace, all of it will testify louder than any words. People will look at you and see light where there was once heaviness. They'll sense authority in your presence, wisdom in your silence, and fire in your clarity. Because what God has done in you was not cosmetic. It was core-level transformation. There is something powerful about becoming in places where no one clapped. It creates a purity in you that can't be touched by pride. It teaches you to move without performance, to speak without fear, and to stand without needing applause. That's where you were shaped, in the stillness, in the surrender, in the stretching. And now, as you rise, it's not noise you bring, it's a knowing, a deep, unshakable knowing that you carry something from heaven and you no longer need validation to move in it. The people who thought they understood you will have to meet you again. And not just meet you, but relearn you. Because the old roles, the old expectations, the old labels no longer apply. You're not the helper who hides in the background anymore. You're not the peacemaker who sacrifices their voice to keep others comfortable. You're not the version of yourself that tolerated what dishonored you. You are the version who understands your assignment, and you're walking in it with boldness, not loudness, but clarity. God has dressed this season in favor, but it's not favor to be admired. It's favor to fulfill a mission. You're not coming forward to be noticed. You're coming forward to make impact, the kind that reaches hearts, the kind that changes atmospheres, the kind that reminds people that transformation is possible, that growth is real, and that God still reintroduces people when He's ready to reveal their next chapter. And when that reintroduction happens, there's no confusion. It's obvious because the evidence doesn't lie. Your smile will carry stories you don't have to retell. Your peace will announce your healing without you saying a word. Your posture will reflect the power of a person who's no longer afraid to be fully seen. You're no longer trying to fit into rooms you've outgrown. You're building rooms that carry your new voice. And in these rooms, the old insecurities won't follow. The old doubts won't survive. The old limitations won't belong. Because your new name, the one heaven gave you, carries the kind of authority that breaks cycles. This reintroduction isn't about who you were, it's about who you've become. And it's only the beginning, because now that you've been refined, refocused, and reawakened, everything connected to your life must rise to match the new you. You're not returning for applause, you're walking in alignment. You are no longer operating from survival. You are now moving in strategy. You are no longer silencing yourself to make others feel safe. You are now speaking with truth, grace, and power. And every room you walk into from now on will know something has changed, not just around you, in you, and it's divine. There is a point in every divine journey where heaven no longer allows you to hide. You've been hidden for a reason, protected from eyes that would have misjudged you and platforms that would have misused you. You've walked through years where your value was veiled, your purpose tucked beneath the surface, and your true voice waiting in stillness. But that season of concealment has reached its end. Not because you begged for attention, but because the fullness of what God has placed inside you is now ready to be revealed. You are no longer walking as someone overlooked. You are walking as someone unveiled, not by effort, not by popularity, but by the hand of God Himself. This unveiling is sacred. There's something beautiful about how God works in silence. He doesn't always announce when He's building you. He often builds in the shadows, chiseling character in the background, shaping identity in the quiet, and teaching trust when no one else is watching. You've been developed in a space that couldn't be contaminated by applause. You were not buried, you were planted. And now what's been planted is pushing through the soil, not with noise, but with force, not with ego, but with assignment. You've outgrown the soil that once held you, and now your time has come to rise into visibility, not as someone begging to be seen, but as someone carrying what must be seen. This unveiling isn't about showing off your gifts. It's about releasing what's been guarded. You've been carrying answers, ideas, solutions, healing, and insight for far too long in the private space. But now, heaven is calling you to pour. What you've survived has prepared you to pour. What you've learned in the wilderness has trained you to speak. What you've been refined through has unlocked a level of spiritual clarity that others desperately need. And God is no longer allowing what you carry to stay in the shadows. This unveiling will place you in positions where your wisdom breaks confusion, where your words break cycles, where your walk becomes evidence of what heaven can do with someone fully surrendered. You were never forgotten. You were reserved. And when something is reserved, it's not because it has less value. It's because it has a specific purpose for a specific time. You weren't delayed. You were being deliberately positioned. God was protecting the purity of your calling from contamination. He was guarding your heart from distractions. He was silencing the noise so you could hear Him more clearly. And now, as the unveiling begins, everything that once felt like a pause will make sense. Every no, every redirection, every delay. It was part of the preparation for a moment that could not be rushed. You are not being unveiled as a replica. You're not stepping into visibility to mimic anyone else's voice. What's being revealed is authentic, undeniable, and unrepeatable. The way you see, the way you speak, the way you move, It's been shaped by your personal fire, by your quiet obedience, by your intimate walk with God. And that uniqueness is your oil. That is what makes you necessary. You are not rising to compete. You're rising to complete something God has written in the earth through you. Your unveiling isn't about spotlight. It's about assignment alignment. There are people who will encounter your presence and not even realize what's changed, but they will feel it. They'll feel the weight of your words. They'll feel the depth in your spirit. They'll feel the quiet authority you carry. And that's because when God unveils someone, it's not just visual, it's spiritual. You begin to radiate something that has been soaked in prayer, refined by time, and anchored in purpose. You won't need to introduce yourself. The atmosphere will recognize you. The fruit of your journey will speak louder than any promotion. This new level of visibility will require less striving and more stewardship. You're not being unveiled for performance. You're being unveiled for impact. That means what you do next must be intentional. Where you go, what you say, what you commit to, all of it matters now more than ever. Because when heaven lifts the veil, the weight of responsibility follows. Not the pressure to be perfect, but the calling to remain pure, focused, and faithful. You're not rising to impress. You're rising to represent the one who carried you when no one else saw your value. There will be those who try to box you into who you used to be. There will be those who resist the change in your voice, the clarity in your message, and the confidence in your presence. That's okay. They didn't walk with you in the silence. They weren't there in the midnight moments when you questioned your worth and God whispered your identity back into your soul. Let them talk. Your unveiling is not up for debate. It's been decided by heaven, and no opinion can alter what God has ordained. Now you walk with a deeper awareness, not just of your value, but of your voice. You're no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. You're no longer hiding what God has placed inside you. You're no longer second-guessing your ability. You know who sent you. You know what you carry. You know what it costs to carry it. And that knowing is what will sustain you in this next season. This unveiling is not temporary. It's not a flash of favor. It's a positioning for purpose. You've been through too much to return to who you were. You've been shaped by divine fire, stretched in sacred stillness, and filled with a clarity that cannot be faked. And now you are ready to rise, ready to pour, ready to walk as the unveiled version of who God knew you were all along. The world is not meeting a new person. It's finally seeing the real one. And that unveiling will shake everything that once tried to keep you hidden. You are not standing in this moment by accident. You are here because heaven has spoken. You are not the same person who entered the fire. You are the refined, rebuilt, and reintroduced evidence that purpose cannot be buried and calling cannot be canceled. Everything you've walked through, every delay, every hidden season, every quiet victory was preparing you for this unveiling. And now, what God has been shaping in silence will be revealed in strength. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. You walk in knowing you were sent. You no longer look for open doors. You carry the keys. You don't need to explain what changed. The fruit will speak. The grace will speak. The presence on your life will say more than any words ever could. You are no longer waiting to become. You are. This is your time to rise without apology, to shine without shrinking, to speak without fear, to move in power, clothed in humility, anchored in purpose. You are heaven's response to everything that tried to silence you. You are walking proof that when God is ready to reveal you, no lie can stop it, no delay can block it, and no force can reverse it. The unveiling has begun, and what's coming next isn't just a season. It's a divine introduction of the version of you that's been hidden in glory, preserved in purpose, and called for such a time as this. Walk boldly. The world hasn't seen anything yet.